governance, risk, and compliance. And compliance. What's up, Drake? What's up, Sharita? What's up, Sarita? What up, Matt? Welcome in, welcome in. We're getting this party started. We're going to learn about governance, risk, and compliance. Governance, risk, and compliance. Got to say it slow like that, y'all. Those are three different items. What's up, agent? Welcome in. Welcome in, folks, to come up, come chat with us. You know how we do it over here. We like to invite folks up, talk about what's going on, give more insights, share more knowledge, break things down, slow this conversation down because it's moving lightning fast. What's up, Bellasima? I know I messed that all up. Welcome in, welcome in. We're talking about cybersecurity, everyone. We're talking about cybersecurity. Now I got to get it right, but Belisma. Welcome in, welcome in. Feel free to come up and chat with us. We are talking about cybersecurity. We got a special guest coming through to hang out with us. Miss Brown will be in the building very soon, and we're gonna chat with her. We're gonna ask her questions. We're gonna talk about cybersecurity. We're gonna talk about GRC. What up for the love? Welcome in, welcome in. Very excited to have folks come up and talk, and that's how we bridge the gap, y'all. That's how we learn. We have to ask questions. We have to be inquisitive. And that is the way that we will learn. What up, Luca? Welcome in, welcome in. We're talking about cybersecurity, and it's a complex topic, and that's why we're on every single day with this. We are on every single day, and I just can't get enough, y'all. I can't get enough, and mainly because there's a lot of growth happening within this space. And there's a lot of growth happening within these efforts that we have to do these cyber talks. I try my best to bring fresh topics, fresh material, content, individuals, guests, and beyond the guests that show up as a special guest, we have guests all the time. What's up, Jelly? We have guests all the time that are always in the chats, that are popping in as, just random, and I appreciate them. I appreciate you all the efforts that you're making to participate, to push this industry forward. That's what it's all about, y'all. We're looking to push the industry forward. What up, Tia? Welcome in, welcome in. Always glad to have you. If you're not doing it to push the industry forward, come up here and tell me what the reason that you're doing it for. What's the reason that you want to get into cyber? What's the reason that you're really in cyber? If it's not to push the industry forward, be honest. What is it? What is it? Because you need to anchor to something. I don't care what it is, but you have to anchor to something. It's a requirement for you to not just quick in and out. Yeah, you might get a quick in and out situation, but the folks who want to last, the folks who want to really be in this space, really doing it, they're doing it for much larger reasons than just a quick in and out, entry and exit situation. Of course, everyone should have their exit strategy. I don't want to get that confused. You should always have an exit strategy for whatever engagement that you do. What's up, Kylie? You want to make sure that you are setting yourself up for success. You always want to make sure that you have that next plateau identified. It doesn't necessarily have to be fully figured out, but it has to be at least identified. I like to go a couple of plateaus up, and that's how I stay sharp. And I encourage others to always dream and aim high and let the dominoes fall the way they fall. I see the special guest just walked into the building, virtually strolled in with the jicky bites, zeros and ones. Welcome in. What's up, Miss Brown? Take your time, get up here. We'll bring you up here. What up, Epic? What up, Tony? We're welcoming folks up to learn about cybersecurity. We're welcoming folks up to ask questions related to cybersecurity, related to governance, risk, and compliance, related to GRC. Welcoming folks up to come chat with us. And special guest is in the building. Welcome, 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 welcome in. How you do? How you are you caught in any snow, Miss Brown?
Hello.
What's
No, no, no. We don't have snow
You
over
avoided
here.
all the snow earlier. It looked like you had a nice shiny sunrise situation or a nice bright situation. So, yeah, I wasn't thinking that you're around snow.
Exactly.
Look, I really appreciate you taking the time to come chat with us, share some knowledge, and talk with the folks over here. Because you have a very impressive, very interesting, extremely, I would say, unique story, from the different places that you've been to the different things that you're touching. I would like to, if you don't mind, to get into it, and kind of unravel some of those things, and from the journeys that you've taken, from the different places that you've lived. Can you share a little bit about that, and then I think we'll start getting some questions in a little later.
Absolutely.
Go for
Is
it.
it echoing?
I'll say it again.
Is it echoing?
A little bit. I'll mute so you can go ahead and do your thing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. So I'm from Nigeria and I've moved to the UK for a couple of years now. So that has been like my immigration journey. So yeah, a little bit about myself. I'm Peace. You can call me Miss Brown. And mm, I would say for me, my background is totally outside tech. I transitioned into cybersecurity like from HR. So that's why I'm very passionate about like helping people to get like a clear understanding of how to transition into cybersecurity because I know that's the big question that a lot of people have. Like, how do I do this? How do I move from where I am to a tech space, especially into cybersecurity? So yeah, so that's what drives me. That's my passion. I love to talk to people. I love to mentor people. And yeah, that's the
Cool.
journey for me.
What? So okay, from Nigeria, now living in UK. So it's late over there. It's super late, and you're invested and committed and still punching in work hours. That's pretty
Uh
cool.
late.
Yeah.
It's like 1 a.m. here.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So punching in, not never. It never sleeps. It never quits. So I want to touch on that continuous learning piece. But
Mm-hmm.
can we roll back just a quick second? You mentioned the HR piece and that transition. What was some of that journey like? Can you share some of the hurdles or even the successes that you ran through?
Okay, yes, that's a great one. So from HR, it got to a point where I felt like I was stuck in like my career, like nothing was really challenging me. For me, like I thrive in like pressurized environments, which can be the opposite of many people. So I felt as though I'm not being challenged anymore. And the conversation about transitioning my career came up. I started having conversation with my friends. So a friend of mine was like already transitioning into cybersecurity GRC. So I said to her, okay, I'm gonna wait for you to get into the field and then you're going to show me the way. So we just said that casually. And to be fair, she was a huge inspiration on my journey because she didn't stay up to like 5 months and she got her first job cybersecurity. So that was really inspiring to me. And then she introduced me to like courses to
Inspiring to
study
me. And
online,
then she
courses to study online. So I started my journey by first understanding the basics, the foundation, right? So what is cybersecurity, right? From those foundational levels, what is cybersecurity? What's a threat? What's a vulnerability? Like those basics, because that was how I was able to transition into GRC because cybersecurity in general is broad. So for me, because my friend already got into GRC, and when I analyzed everything that she did in her day-to-day job, I saw that I had some transferable skills. For example, when I worked in HR, I manage projects, I manage people. So I saw those were transferable skills that I had. All I needed to do was just to brush up my knowledge on like regulations, frameworks, and just understand the basics of what cybersecurity is all about and what GRC responsibilities are. So that was my journey for me.
I love that. I love that. And Tia brought up a good point. Since you came from the HR brain, did that also help with the transition in as far as making sure you present yourself in a way that that HR would love?
Um, that's a good one because when you work in HR, you manage people, and depending on the industry you are or organization you work for, you also manage training. And that's something too that is a transferable skills within GRC, which is security awareness training, right? So if you have all those skills, these are things that you can actually cross over with into GRC because you're going to be able to talk to people, you're going to be able to follow up with projects, follow people up, and then you're also going to be able to track training to be sure that people get that awareness and the outcome from what that training was scheduled for or what the curriculum is all about. So these are like key areas where you can really, really use your skills to shine within GRC.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right, now let me reset the room real quick. I see several people flooded in. Welcome in, folks. There's a lot of new names in here that I haven't seen. So if you're a first time here, welcome in. Today we're talking about GRC. We have a special guest, Miss Brown, in, and we typically talk about cyber security related topics every single day. We try to keep it fresh. So check us out as well as we're welcoming folks up. So if you have a question, you can drop it in the chat. If you want to come up and interface with Miss Brown yourself or myself, feel free to request up. And we want to talk about it. We want to talk about any questions that you have related to governance, risk, and compliance. And we can also keep it general too, as far as cybersecurity. We take tangents sometimes, but I'll try to keep us on topic. Also, to note that this is a global live. I'm very thankful we have Miss Brown here. It is 1 o'clock in the morning over there in the UK, and that's where she is. So please be respectful of her time when you come up here and ask any questions that you may have, and have brevity and keep it clean. All right. Let's start with let's start talking about this topic here, governance, risk, and compliance. Can you share some things? What does your day look like? What have you seen other folks in the space days look like? I know you have the friend that kind of got trend set it into the space and kind of ushered you into the space, and I'm thankful that you leveraged your resources, you looked at your transferable skills, you were able to get through the mindset that you can actually do this and commit to it. So talk to us a little bit about what you have going on within GRC.
Great, thank you very much. So basically, my day-to-day responsibilities fall around governance, risks, and compliance, right? So I ensure that we have the right policies, we have the right standards in place, and also first things first in GRC, when you join an organization, the first thing you want to understand is what rules do we need to comply with, right? What regulatory requirements what are our regulatory obligations, what frameworks do we need. So when you understand all those areas and then you now check your policies or develop policies if there are gaps in those policies to ensure that you have the right controls in place in those documents. So when I say controls, what I mean is control is any security measure you put in place to ensure protection within an organization. So you want to be sure that you have the right requirements to guide the organization. Because when we talk about governance, governance is more about decision making and accountability mechanisms. Because when you lay out, these are the things we need to do to protect our information security system. So who is accountable? Who is responsible? So you have to make sure that you have people assigned to those roles, right? And then also there's leadership expectations. Because as a leader, you lead by example. So you want to make sure that the leaders are setting good examples by also complying to those policies, right? So, and then for me, I conduct risk assessment. This is something we do quarterly. Risk assessment to check for areas where there are gaps, to understand if we have any vulnerabilities within our processes, our systems, our applications, and all of that. And then when we identify, are there vulnerabilities, are there threats, what is the risks within these process areas, then you now talk about how do you manage these risks. Because one thing is to know that we have a risk in these areas, but the next step is how do we manage these risks. So that's where risk management comes in. And then compliance just talks about, are we following the rules, are we evidencing it? Because one thing that a good GRC professional must do is you must have documented evidence for any process that you're reviewing, because when something is not evidence, it was not done. So that's something you're also going to have at the back of your mind to make sure that anything you're working with, any stakeholder you're working with, any control owner you're working in, or process owner, you're ensuring that they are documenting everything. So when your regulators come in, regulators are the bodies that enforce those rules and laws. So when they come in to audit, you have proof to say we have this in control in place, right? We have this control in place, and your evidence is what speaks for you. So so that's just for it. Those are the major things that I do in my day to day. And then when we speak about my friend, I can also touch base because she started as a very specialized area within GRC, which is controls management. So she just focuses on making sure that we have the right controls in place and those controls are effective and working as intended, right? So as I mentioned, controls are like security measures you put in place to ensure protection of an asset. For example, if you have a broken door or a faulty lock, when you fix the door and you lock it, that's a control, because nobody can walk into your door without knocking on your door and you open. So that lock you put there, the knob that locks the door, that's a control. So when I speak control, I just want you to have that in mind. So yeah, so she was very based on control management and all of that. But yes, yes, I hope I've answered that question.
Absolutely.
Upstairs, okay? Just because you want to play video games.
What's up, Cypher? Had to mute you a little bit. Let me know. Feel free to come off mute. And if you have a question or want to talk a little bit, Ms. Brown, that was great. I think that was a great intro into what GRC is. Couple of great examples. Love that top down approach, and you dropped some key things that folks may not be aware of as far as process owners and making sure that what are we doing here? Okay, we have regulators that are going to come audit us, so we need to prepare for that. I guess I could take this a couple of directions. Let me start with just like maybe a quick question as far as like those audit situations. When those regulators come in, those auditors come in, is that a stressful situation, or if you have your stuff together, your fecal matter, if you have it all together, then you're good to go, or how do you see that play out?
That's a very valid GRC mindset, because you always have to be ready. That's why audit readiness is one key responsibilities within GRC. You want to seem composed. You want to be a composed company, because when auditors come in and you're running helter skelter, it speaks badly about the organization. So that's why audit readiness is a key requirement within GRC, because you work with your control owners to say, okay, let's make sure that everything that we are doing, we are evident. So when when auditors come in, it's easy to just present those evidences because they will live and breathe for evidence. So when they come in, you're very well organized and you're able to provide everything that they need, right? So it's always essential to be ready than to be running all over the place whenever auditors come in.
Gotcha, gotcha. I'm gonna try to tackle one of these, or try to get one of these questions from the chat floated in. Someone said something like, "Can you just accept all, all the risk?" And can you speak to some of the thought, how the thought process or the type of process that happens whenever you have to decide whether or not to accept a risk?
Yes, okay, so that's risk management, right? So um first things first is you try to identify what the vulnerabilities are and what is the likelihood and what would the potential impact of that risk be. Let me give this in simple terms. So let's say you have a broken door, and the broken door there is the vulnerability, because vulnerabilities are weaknesses, right? So anything that can be exploited. So you have the broken door and the threats, because like I said, in order for you to understand risks, you have to speak on vulnerabilities and threats. Then you have to think of risks. So the threat there is that a burglar that is looking for where to steal could see an open door, faulty door, or a wide open window, a patched window that is not properly done, and say, okay, I'm going to come into this house and steal valuables, right? So the risk there is the likelihood of that vulnerability and threat coming together, which is the burglar taking advantage of that open door. Now, when you think about risk treatment options, because when you identify the risk, the next thing that comes to your mind is, okay, what do we do? What do we do with this informed decision, with this information we have? So that's where risk treatment option comes in to say, okay, let's assess, let's see what is the best measure to take for this risk. So sometimes the risk could lean towards, okay, let's mitigate it, right? So mitigation comes in to say, okay, let's put in a control, which is, okay, I'm going to fix the door and I'm going to lock the door, which means you've put in a control to prevent the burglar from coming to the door and having straight access into your home. So which means the burglar has to try to make noise with the door, trying to forcefully destroy the door, and then you're going to wake up and figure that out with calling the police and all of that. So that's reducing the risks, right, to an acceptable level. One thing I want you to have in mind is that you cannot totally eliminate all risks. There will still be a potential risk, but it's just that it's going to be within an acceptable level. So the first step is to say, okay, the first option you can go with will say, okay, mitigate. And then you have another point where you say, okay, we are going to accept these risks. After all, in our home, we don't have anything valuable, right? So even if the burglar comes in, we just have plates and worn out sheets and all of that. So there's nothing for that burglar to actually take that would really affect us. So you're just going to leave it like that and stay with your door open like that. And then you have another option, which is to avoid the risks. So you can also think to say, rather than fixing this, you've checked the cost of fixing the door and putting the windows and everything in place. You just say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to avoid this risk, which means we are going to move out of this place and go to a brand new apartment rather than having to fix this whole place, right? So that you're just avoiding that risk. And just in an organizational context, you say software removal, you can remove the software and just say, okay, uninstall and let's go away, sunset it. And then there's also another option for you to say, okay, we can transfer these risks. We don't want to carry the burden of these risks, that's where you now start thinking about insurance, right? So you can outsource also that function, or to say, okay, we are going to rent this place out, right? Or we are going to buy an insurance, a home insurance. So if anything valuable in this home that maybe due to the faulty door. Maybe we've tried to fix the door and maybe they're telling us that it's going to take 6 months for the parts to come. What do we do in the meantime? We are going to buy an insurance. In case anything valuable is missing, we can get it back. So these are like areas where how you just think to manage risks, right? And then another thing I want you to have in mind is once you've put in either of these risk treatment options, right? You're not just going to go home and sleep and act like nothing happened. You're going to continuously monitor to be sure that nothing has changed, right? So in the context of an organization, you still conduct quarterly risk assessment to check that, okay, the controls are effective, which is the door is working as intended, right? And there are no new faults around the lock and all of that. So I'm giving you in the context of a home analogy and also an organization. So you just kind of understand which is easier for you to retain.
Cool. Yeah, no, that was great. Let me reset the room and Tech Food, you can go. Um,
Hey, how are you?
what's up, Tech Food? Welcome in, everyone. We have a special guest in the building. We're talking about governance, risk, and compliance (GRC). We have Miss Brown in, and
My
she's
name is
here.
Brown.
Um,
Hi.
she's here to answer questions, talk about cybersecurity. We can talk about GRC. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We'll try to get to them. But Tech Food, what you got, bro?
No, I was listening to the analogy. The analogy was okay regarding homes and stuff like that. And I was just thinking in my head just for other people who might be, because a lot of people don't know that they're actually encountering this type of thing like every day, especially if they've hired a security person, if there's governance risk, if it's HIPAA, if it's SOX, right? I'll say, like, I'll give you, from my example, what I've encountered is dentist office. They tend to be the last ones that want to do this. I don't know why. Man, I kind of get it, but they're amongst the last. They're amongst the last. And then there's also people who deal in like advertising, but they have credit cards.
Mhm.
They have corporate cards pretty much attached to every account, attached to everything. And it's like, hey guys, you should do some kind of two-factor authentication. And then they look at you like, oh, you're a spoiler. So I wanted to hear examples from her, but I would imagine that if anyone is listening at this point, they may have some experience and they may have seen this.
Okay. So what I'm getting is you want me to give more examples within an organizational context. I'm also, remember, I said I was the topic of this session is to break down the jargons, right? So I'm trying to make people to understand from their
Okay.
day-to-day life so they can relate if it's something that they already have existing transferable skills to go into GRC. Because if I'm very technical, some
Okay.
people who do not have backgrounds in cybersecurity may not understand. Do you get?
I get it. Let me ask you something. Do you think it's easy for, and you could tell me, from your perspective, if someone has never had any experience with technology,
Mm-hmm.
right? How easy is it for them to get to the GRC level, to get to that point where they're speaking to the business, where they're doing these types of things that you were just talking about?
Okay, it's a good question because somebody who has not had like an organizational experience but manage risks at home, you can carry that risk mindset because at the end of the day, what an organization is looking out for when they want to hire you, especially in GRC, is do you have a risk mindset? Right? Because anything you're thinking, you have to be thinking, what is the risk in this? So some people might be doing these things every day in their daily life, but they don't even know that
Got it.
that thing can give them a good skill, a good career. So that's the angle I'm coming from. I'm trying to make people understand that you can actually transition into GRC. Don't let the name governance, risks, and compliance scare you, because these are things that you do in your daily life. You manage risks in your home. You comply to rules within your home, right? You govern your home. So the same way you govern it, there might just be little tweaks, which in this aspect, now you're thinking of the security of the organization, protecting their assets, right? The same way you protect your assets in your home, that's the same mindset you will have when you're in an organization. Do you get?
Yeah, I get it. Okay, I get it. I understand.
That's fire, actually. And you just brought some value. That's very valuable for folks to level set and reduce it down to something they're familiar with. And if you can do it, familiarize yourself with something that you're familiar with, and layer in terms like continuously monitor, risks treatment, avoiding the risk, accepting the risk, and what's an acceptable level. Start thinking about these things, getting yourself audit ready. You will be speaking the language and vernacular that the GRC folks are speaking. So your transition becomes easier from that perspective too, is what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
That's fire.
Exactly.
It's fire. Tell us more. Say more.
Okay. What in particular would you like me to like break down what governance, risks, and compliance is? Because when people hear GRC, yes, there are some companies that can list out a job opportunity to say we are looking for a GRC analyst or a GRC specialist. But I want people to also understand that there are still roles within the G, within the R, and within the C, all still in cybersecurity.
I want it. I know we need it. Just because when people just throw it out there, GRC, okay, it's an umbrella. Okay, so what are you talking about? And I think that if you break it down for folks, and by the way, everyone, Ms. Brown is in GMT +5, so she is spending some cycles to spare us some time. So let's make sure we come with solid questions and respect her time.
What's GMT +5? Are we talking about New York?
No,
No.
UK.
Oh, you're in UK. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's break it down. Let's break down the G, break down the R. Let's hit them with the C.
Okay, great. Okay, so when you hear GRC stands for Governance, Risks, Compliance. So this is the part of cybersecurity that focuses on decision making, managing risks, and following rules and regulation within the industry. So GRC connects cybersecurity to like business reality in terms of like protecting the organizational assets, right? So when we talk about governance is more about direction and accountability. So a governance responsibility answers this question: who is responsible? What policies guide behavior? And also processes, right? And then how does leadership set expectation? So from a governance point, what you want to be able to do in that governance point is to say, okay, let's say we are a financial institution or an organization, and then we need to comply to PCI DSS. So PCI DSS is a framework that organizations within financial services mostly comply with, especially card payment, like Visa, MasterCard, and all of that. So that framework now has 12 set requirements, right, that you must comply with. So from a governance perspective, you want to understand to say, okay, so what are the controls we need to have in place to make us fully compliant, right? So the framework gives you 12 requirements. Now you align it to the different domains, right? So you have physical security, IAM, and all of that. So what you want to do is align it according to the domain, and then assign accountability mechanism to say, okay, who is responsible to do this? Which function manages this? Because when there's distinction, when people understand why they want to do what they want to do, then it makes sense to them, right? So that's what governance is all about. And then you set leadership expectations. You also advise the leaders to say, okay, for people to even know what is right is they emulate their leaders, right? So you have to set good expectations, right? And then when you set out those policies too, you're also going to carry out security awareness training. Because one thing is for people to understand we have rules to follow. We have rules to follow, but they don't know where the rules are. They don't know where it is documented. So you must have a central repository, which is a central area where you upload all your policies and direct people there. Communication is key. So you must have some sort of communications to tell people that we have these policies, these are the requirements, and this is what we need from you. This is what you need to do, right? And then carry out periodic security awareness training. I tell you, humans are the weakest form. So the more you talk to people, don't think like it's ever enough to speak to people about security and their accountability in supporting those practices. Because some people feel like if they're not in cybersecurity, they don't have any business with security. So that's what governance is coming to tell people. We are giving you the direction and we are telling you your accountability in ensuring that we protect our organizational assets, right? So these are key areas what governance covers. Then when we talk about risks is about understanding what are our weaknesses as an organization, where does the threat lie, right? And what is the risks? Like I said, when you talk about risks, you have to think what are the weaknesses and what are the threats. Because risks, in the sense, is the likelihood that a threat could exploit a vulnerability and the impact it would have on the organization or it will have within whatever area you're assessing, right? So you always have to think risks. As a GRC professional, when you're working with people, processes, you have to understand, think to say, okay, what is the risk? Where does the risk lie? And how can we close that gap, right? So, so that's just what risk is all about. So, for example, I can give you an example to say, okay, weak passwords. When you think of an organizational context, weak passwords, when people have weak password, that's a vulnerability, right? Outdated software, when the company is still using outdated software, companies don't have security policies. All these things are vulnerabilities that can be exploited. And then when you think, what is the threat? Threat is like hackers, malware. So when people understand that this organization, they don't have security policies, they don't even talk to their staff members about the essence of protecting the organization, they don't even introduce phishing. What is phishing? Some people, you ask a random person in that organization, what is phishing? And they say, huh? Stuff like that. So, and the thing people don't understand is a threat can be anybody. A threat can be internal and external. Because sometimes some people on their jobs, they are very upset. They hate that company. The only thing that ties them to that company is just their paycheck. So they can leak out information to tell people like, look, we have vulnerabilities in this company. And what does the threat do? They exploit it. So that's why you always have to ensure that there are procedures in place to ensure multi-factor authentication, right? That is very key. Like majority of the frameworks, regulations, laws require multi-factor authentication. And then the risk there now is, okay, a hacker could exploit, maybe a weak password or one thing or the other. So that's how you understand the risks. If this thing should materialize, so let's say somebody is able to have access into our database, what would that happen to? What would that cause for the organization? What would the impact be? Definitely to lead to a reputational damage, because once it's published, because in the UK you have to report to the ICO within 72 hours if you have a breach, right? So that's something that is going to be public, and everybody is going to know that this company experienced maybe a ransomware attack or one thing or the other. So that's going to affect your business and your customer trust. So why do organizations ensure that they have the right GRC professionals, the right cybersecurity professionals, is to maintain trust, customer trust, and to also safeguard their reputation, right? So this is why risk assessment is essential and is very key in any organization. And then when you talk about, I'm going to move into compliance now. What is compliance? We've understood that governance is about direction, what are the rules, accountability mechanism. Risk is about what could go wrong, what are the vulnerabilities, what are our weaknesses as an organization, and how can we improve? How can we strengthen our security postures? What controls can we put in place? As previously mentioned, controls are measures you put in place to protect an asset, right? So now compliance is to ensure that, are we following the rules? Are we following the regulations, the regulatory requirements? Because if you work for a financial institution, you're going to be heavily regulated. So are we following it? Are we meeting up to expectations, right? And then it's not about checkbook to say, okay, we are going to tick, tick, tick. Are you keeping evidence? Because anything you can't prove did not occur. So when you're speaking from compliance, this should be your mindset. Because as a risk analyst, you're going to be thinking, what could go wrong? What is the risk? Where does the risk lie here? But when you're talking about compliance, what you're going to be thinking is, can we prove? Can we evidence that we have these controls in place? Can we evidence that there's secure development? So that's where your mindset will be driving towards, to say, okay, can we evidence that we have the right identity and asset management controls in place? Can we evidence that truly we carry out quarterly review of privileged access, right? So those are the things that will be coming through your mind from a compliance perspective. Then compliance focuses on meeting legal and regulatory requirements, evidence and documentation, heavy on evidence and documentation, and audit and reporting, because you're going to be reporting the state of your security posture. You're going to be reporting on the state of your compliance state, right? And that reporting too is going to serve as evidence when auditors come in to say, yes, we have a governance mechanism where whatever we do as an organization within governance, risks, and compliance, we report to our leaders to communicate, to help them make informed decisions, right? So lastly, I'll say compliance proves that you are following the rules with evidence. And some frameworks that most companies abide by or follow is like within the UK, EU, European Union, we have something we call GDPR. So GDPR is about data protection, privacy, and I believe that most of you must have worked with organizations where they send you documents. Let's say, for example, an insurance company sends you a document and they tell you that you can't access the document. And then you have to go back to the email to read, and they'll tell you to access the file we've attached, you have to use either your postcode or your date of birth or your last name. So what they've done there, they are following data protection and privacy requirements, which is data in motion. That data they've transferred to you, they ensure that it was encrypted, they ensure that it was protected, right? So those are like requirements that kind of a company now that has done that is following that, and they've documented that whatever we send to our customers, we protect it, right? And then they have PCI DSS, which I mentioned, which is for mostly card payment, people who do processing of cards. And then they have ISO 27001. This is a very global standard that almost every company uses. It's for information security management. So these standards set the pace for what is secure information security management should look like. What are the controls you must have to say, yes, you're fully secured as an organization, right? So there are many, many, many frameworks out there, but you just have to understand what your company is required to comply with. So if I'm to reiterate, I'll say governance defines the rules. Risks is what could go wrong. Are we making the right decisions? And compliance is, are we following the rules? Do we have them documented as evidence? Right? So to tie this all back together, within GRC, what our main function is, we identify vulnerabilities, we understand threats, we assess risks, we manage those risks, because when you identify the risks, you have to manage it, right? And then we ensure that we comply to the regulatory requirements, which are the rules. So this is how an organization protects themselves in a structured way.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's great breakdown, everyone, and it's more than that. Like, she just gave us the high level what these are, so that way we can understand that there is a difference between each letter, the G, the R, the C. Yeah, Chiefy. Yeah, Chiefy, you can come off mute,
Yeah.
bro. What you got?
Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah. I just started cybersecurity, right? And I'm listening. I'm listening to her, and this is great. This is great information. So my question is, I work in a factory right now, and I decided to do a project to present to my company because I don't think they don't have a blue team in in my company. So knowing that they don't have a blue team, I decided first to scan the network, and I found out there is so many vulnerabilities that could get exploited, and but I feel like I still stuck, right? I'm stuck because I don't know what to do next. I know how to scan, but I don't know what to do next. Like she was saying, we need to understand, we need to see where the threats are coming from, where the vulnerabilities are coming from, and where can we get with this. We need to. I actually
And
did document it
let me jump in
before.
too, Chiefy.
Did he say he scanned his
Yeah,
company?
hold on, Miss
Yeah,
Brown.
that's what I heard.
Miss
Yeah.
Brown. Yeah,
I
hold
wanted
on,
to
y'all.
just keep
Hold on,
waiting.
y'all.
I wanted to keep waiting.
Hold on, bro. Hold on. Miss Brown, you can tag in, but and I know Nigel probably wants to jump in, but Chiefy, something
Yes.
important here, bro. You should always look to protect yourself. We should everyone protect yourself,
Mm-hmm.
protect the environments that you're in. That's not allowed, bro. You're not allowed to do that. You shouldn't have done that, and we'll keep it
I
moving.
know.
We'll keep it
Yeah.
moving. I know you just want to talk about something specific, but
Yeah.
try to keep the examples general,
Mm-hmm.
and what you're trying to do. Let's bounce over to Nigel to pivot.
Okay.
I have no comment. I would just say, don't incriminate yourself.
I was thinking maybe it was like his family's company or something. You never know.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okie dokie.
So what? Let me try to get somewhere with this though, because it almost sounded like, hey, I'm trying to put forth effort to show that that different things that I'm working on is something that could be valuable to where I want to go, and um, yes, it sounded like the idea was there, as far as wanting to look within an environment and hey guys, look, this is what you got going on, but you need special permissions for that, to even do that, and you got to be a part of a certain team, but it's hard for me to even get away from that, y'all. I'm sorry.
I gotta tell you something real quick. I worked at a place that for me life is pre-ransomware, post-ransomware.
You can't do that.
And I worked at a place that they did not take security seriously. And then after everything happened, I still remember a member of the board And he was like, "It's kind of too late now. He said the horses are out the barn and the barn is on fire." He goes, "I wish we would have had someone, or we would have done something." And so to me, I'm kind of like, if he knows, I don't know if he knows anyone. You know what I mean? Like, he already did it. I don't know if he could, to be I just don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know where everyone is at. My perspective is, I really don't think all businesses are on it. I really just don't. I'll be honest with you. And so I wonder if he couldn't be helped.
Yeah, no, you're right. The business, and that's why Miss Brown is here to shed light into the fact that there are businesses that are doing this right. There are businesses that are doing this completely wrong and or not at all. Not even on the map. Maybe doing various versions of each of the letters, but just to band-aid and limp along. But to your point, they don't have Miss Brown on the team. They don't have that brain, that risk lens on the team that's interfacing with leadership, that talks about the technology that's in place. So there is a gap in a lot of places, especially those smaller to mid-sized businesses. That's where a lot of the gaps are. Not to say that the enterprise level just is crushing it, because they have their gaps as well. They have their obstacles that they deal with, but um, yeah, it's a space. And Ms. Brown, go ahead and tell us about it. It's a space that where resources are needed. So if we wanted to go to LinkedIn right now and we wanted to break into the G, the R, or the C, or the all three, what are some of the things that we would type into LinkedIn on our job hunting journey? Or is there anything prior to even punching anything into LinkedIn that we should be doing independent research on?
Yeah, that's a good one because like I mentioned, right, GRC is very broad. So sometimes you can see an organization will be looking out for a governance analyst or a governance specialist. So the thing that one has to focus on is just to read the job description, right? Because I've seen where there was a job advert for an information security analyst, and the requirement was very technical, where they needed the person to have knowledge of CM and all of that. But I've also seen an information security analyst role that was very GRC focused, which is like, oh, policies, standards, risk assessment, third party risk management, security awareness training and all of that. So at the end of the day, one has to focus on like the details of the advert, but like job titles that you can search for, that you can apply to within GRC. You hear things like governance analyst, you hear things like risk analyst, you hear things like some companies actually put the full GRC analyst. Some companies you would just hear compliance analyst, but when you read, it's very GRC focused. And then sometimes you also see where they can make it very technology GRC, so there are different areas. For me, I fall into technology GRC, so I'm very technical a little bit. But some people are like enterprise wide. So it depends. Me, I always tell people to say, if you can do GRC in full, then know where you want to specialize on. But if your first job opportunity comes in a very specialized area and you get the job, you have to go there too.
Yeah. What you got, Nigel? Good stuff. Thank you, Miss Brown.
Yeah, I was kind of piggybacking off with the incriminating point that came up earlier. How I would do maybe a hands-on if I wanted to get in GRC. I would do something like create a fictitious company, right? Pick an industry, understand different industries, right? Just SaaS, fintech, healthcare, whatever the case may be. Create like a fictitious organization, right? And understand maybe the data and regulations that you make up for that company, right? Whether it's PII, regulations could be SOC 2, GDPR, whatever you choose, right? Mm-hmm. And then from there, pick a framework, right? For me personally, I'm not a GRC SME, but I'm familiar with most frameworks. So I would pick the NIST CSF. That's the one I'm most familiar with, right? So once I come up with a fictitious organization, then I'm going to pick a framework, right? And then I'm going to map it, right? NIST, identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, right? From there, I would then try and perform a risk assessment, right? So create something like a risk registry and identify or come up with a risk ID, a threat, the vulnerability, the likelihood, impact, right? There's other things that go into that. I'm sure Ms. Brown can, correct me, but like existing controls, the risk owner, et cetera, et cetera. From there, once I have the framework, then I'm going to map controls to the framework, right? So identify relevant NIST controls, describe the control and the control type, right? So these are the steps and tasks, because I work very closely with GRC as well, because I'm the one that's finding the threats. So boom, once we map the controls to the framework, we describe the control, and then we understand the control type, whether it's preventative or detective, right? And then you can add a status if you want to really build out a real workflow, right? Is the status implemented? Is it partial, or is it missing, et cetera, et cetera? Then you can do a gap assessment. Now compare the required controls, existing controls, and the output, right? So each control can have, the output can be, it can be a gap, the risk level of each gap, and the priority. This is what's going to help the GRC internally and reporting to leadership on our status once audits come through, all of that, all of that. And then you can write a policy. This is all fictitious, based off a fictitious company that you come up with, but you can now speak to a lot of the core fundamentals of GRC by just making up a fake company and going through these steps, right? These are the steps, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Brown, that you do or someone on your team does on a daily basis. So these are ways that you can get experience. Once you understand what GRC is, go do it, walk through it.
Very well said. Like, you hit it spot on.
Yeah, good point. So the big takeaways there is getting that put on your risk lenses, everyone, and you need to walk around your internal domain, your home, and look for risks. Remediate those risks. Add those risks to an area where they are being documented and tracked and logged, and practice these steps that we're talking about. Ask ChatGPT to help you guide you on what steps you need to take. Tell them that you, just like Nigel said, tell them you want to align with X framework, X standard, with this fictitious company that is in X industry vertical that you want to target. So the more hyper focused you get on your job journey searching, the easier it is. I would say mainly because it becomes much clearer who you need to go talk to. It becomes much clearer which little purple bubble, a purple outline circle within LinkedIn that you need to go look at and go knock on that door, because they're in that industry vertical. They're working for a company that you want to be a part of. They are hiring, and they are looking for the role that you want to do, that you are spending time immersing yourself in.
Can I give GRC some love, man? Because I'm sure we've all seen, I've seen this trend going around that GRC isn't technical, and everyone thinks that GRC is this easy route into cybersecurity. And I'm here to debunk this, because I'm tired of seeing this stuff. GRC is technical. Now, is it in the depth where they're in the command line and running commands and stuff like that? No, probably not. But GRC is anchored on networks, cloud infrastructure, identity systems, logging and monitoring. Like, GRC, if you don't understand the tech, you can't identify the risk, validate the controls, or challenge weak evidence. So this is very important. Another thing, GRC, right, works with the implementation of the technology. So they have to understand what MFA maps to. They have to understand what the logging is mapping to. They have to understand encryption, access reviews. Like they have to know all of these technical things, right? So if a GRC doesn't understand where the control lives, how it was implemented, what does it failure looks like if it's not working, like these are all technical things. And for me, when it comes to the risk part, risk assessments requires threat modeling, if you ask me, because you're evaluating the attack paths, misconfigurations, the exposure points. So they have to understand how breaches occur, how the attack weaknesses are, and how architecture decisions create risk as well. The implementation of the tool that the company wants to get. GRC is involved in all of that. So don't think they're just pushing papers around and, you know, like, I'm just, sorry, Ms. Brown, it hurts my soul when they say that. I'm like, it's technical, like, don't sleep on it.
Exactly. You're somebody that you have to wear multiple hats because sometimes I have to work with even quality assurance to check that they're checking for the right things, you know, because I've had instances where, you know, most of the rigs was relying on quality assurance not conducting adequate testing. So these are areas where you have to wear multiple hats and check that, okay, that this process, you have to know a little bit of those process to understand the risks. And you have to ask the right questions that helps you determine where the risk lies. Because to be fair, you may not have a full understanding of what each process entails, but like when you ask the right question, you're able to get to the root cause of like a potential risk, you know, within that area. So when people say GRC is very easy, it sounds easy until like you're on the job, then you see that you need to, you know a lot of things. You need to understand, like, you know, even the architecture of certain processes, you need to understand the flow. You understand? So these are key areas where you have to wear a bit of your technical hat on. Because if you're also trying to implement even a new application or system or anything, a GRC person has to come and understand what is the flow.
Got it. Yeah. Are they giving you access to like AWS or to an Azure or something like that?
No, I'm not cloud-based.
Oh,
Yes, I'm not cloud-based. For me, my area of specialization is like within SDLC, software development.
software development lifecycle type stuff.
Yes.
That's what it is, right? Okay.
Yes. So I have to check for technology controls to be sure that, you know, they have the right peer review controls in place, their pipelines are accurate, and all those areas. Change and release is like very, very vital in this area, especially release, to be sure that it passes through the right protocols and everything. They do the right checks before they release any product. So
you're like you're big tech, where they're pushing out a version, but they already have their fingers on the I guess I want to say go back to the previous version. You're doing big tech stuff, big applications.
Yeah, so I'm not, that's why I mentioned, right, that I'm not very regular GRC that people are very familiar with. So most people are very enterprise focused, but me, I'm very specialized because my new role, that was where I found like myself. So I had to just wear the hat, you know, but for my background, yes, I started off like being enterprise, but now I'm very specialized within technology. So
AJ,
yeah.
what she just answered when she said enterprise, that's my when I say big tech, I think enterprise. I think greater than 100. Great. I mean, actually, maybe yeah, like greater than 100 people, I'm thinking nationwide. That's why when I said that.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah. But
Yes,
even SaaS solutions, I've seen SaaS solutions, enterprise. Like to me, I need to see a lot of people. I need to be like, where's this person at? These people are in Canada. These people are in wherever. That's when I'm like, whoa. All right, we're cooking with something. Just being in New York is like, that's my perspective.
oh,
Yes,
oh, oh.
1,000 people. Someone is like 1,000 people, but I
When
wouldn't
you
even
mean
say
enterprise, do you mean like somebody that manages a global enterprise like GRC? Or like for me though, my company is very global. We have over 10,000 plus employees, right? So it's like really big.
Yeah.
Yeah, so from an enterprise perspective, you're looking at managing CTO, CIO, and as well as the cybersecurity function.
Right.
Whereas my current role, I'm just focused on CTO, which is technology,
Nice.
Got you. Copy that.
Chief Technology Office. Yeah.
All right, y'all. We're gonna wrap it up. We can maybe get another question, comment.
Where are you at on YouTube, man?
My YouTube.
Yeah, it says YouTube Live, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, so the YouTube thing just started, and it's Nate Butler
Okay.
Explains.
No rush, man. DM me if you know whenever you want another follower. That's it. That's all.
Yeah, I'll tag you, bro. Good looking out. All right, everyone. One gonna go around. Any questions in the chat? We're gonna want to get Miss Brown out of here. Get her on with her her day. And any questions, comments?
Someone says search.
Yeah, great question. Miss Brown, when it comes to like, let's just focus on like the enterprise GRC environment. Or you know what? Let's get someone. Let's go the route of getting specialized in a like SDLC. What would be if I wanted to be in your role? What are what's a roadmap as far as certifications that you would advise me to go look at to get to that more specialized? I want to touch SDLC type of role within GRC.
To be fair, it's still the normal GRC certifications, right? Just that you have to speak more towards like managing technology. For me, though, certified in risks and information systems control, which is called CRICS. So CRICS is like a very well demanded within GRC because that's like very risks and information security focused, right? So I would say people should look out to do CRICS, and then they have another one they call CISM, which is CISM.
Yeah. Yeah.
1 minute.
Yeah.
Let me pull that up. So that one is Certified Information Security Manager. So these two, for me, if I'm advising somebody to look out for certifications to do within GRC, I'll say look out for CISM, CISM, which is Certified Information Security Manager, and the CRICS one. Why I said so, because they are very governance, risks, and compliance focused, right? And then if you are somebody that wants to have a strong knowledge of frameworks, then I'll say do the lead implementer one and lead auditor certification for ISO 27001.
Yeah, that would get it there, and then
Lead implementer and lead auditor for ISO 27001. So when you have either of those certification, companies will trust you that you can implement an ISO 27001 framework from start to finish, right?
Yeah, and those are some big boy certs, and the big recognition when you have that stamp. Any prior steps? Do you think that anyone could just walk up and start studying and then go grab those certs, or are there any prior steps that they should do prior to stepping into those big boy certs?
Yes, those big boy sets, as you call it, right? When you sign up to take those certifications, they usually give you like modules that you would read and study materials. So that would really put you up to speed on like what the questions they are going to be assessing you about and what knowledge you need to have, right? So in those modules, they will really go deep into what is expected as a lead implementer of an ISO 27001 certificate, or if you're doing the auditing one, what is expected, what makes you stand out, what makes you a certified ISO 27001 auditor, right? What makes you a certified implementer. So that's what the curriculum is going to entail. And then when you're done studying your resources, then you take the exam. So it's not something that you fully need to get so much years of experience before you can attempt to take that certification. I believe that with the modules that and study resources they're going to give to you is enough to equip you and put you up to speed on how to pass your exam.
Yeah, and I would layer in there, if you're gonna look at one of those certs, go look at the requirements. You can take the cert and pass it, but if you don't have the other requirements to be eligible to even receive the cert, you have to make sure that you look at those. There's a lot of things that can work in your favor, like having a master's degree, years of experience, and having someone who can pretty much vouch for you that you have those years of experience. So you have all that stuff ready to go. I think that that's a good place to land it, just because you introduced. I call them the big boy search, just because and the proof is in the pudding, y'all. Go to LinkedIn, type in any cert that we just rattled off that's in the chat right now, and go look at those roles that come up when you type those certs in there, and see what type of uh, roles that we're talking about. So let's land it there. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Miss Brown, for coming through. I know it's late. Any last minute, anything come up for you that you want to share last minute before we drop?
Yes. Before I share like the last bit, somebody dropped in the chat to say what are some entry level roles for GRC. So entry level roles would be more like you get an opportunity to be an intern, or some companies too, when they post out jobs, they can put like junior GRC roles or junior information security analyst. And so those are areas where you can get those entry level opportunities. But most times, you know how you can build your skills. I'll just tell you, start around what is familiar with you. You know, start understanding what it is to assess a risk. That's why whenever I speak to people, I try to take out the technicalities so people can relate from like your surroundings, what is familiar to you. Because when you understand risks, no matter where you are, you can always assess any form of risks. All you just need is to get insights into that area, right? So start getting familiar with what governance is, what risks is, what compliance is. When you understand it, then you know that you are ready to fully go into GRC. And another thing I would say is you have to get foundational knowledge of cybersecurity, because you need to understand some technicalities. Some people don't even know what phishing is. You need to understand like some of the foundational words, know what they mean, how they affect an organization, how they affect systems. What is a multi-factor authentication? Why is it important? Why must we have multi-factor authentications in place, right? So what is physical security? What is access control? So you need to understand those things. When you understand those things, it makes sense to you, right? So, and I would say if you're trying to go into GRC, I would say be patient, right? Be patient with yourself. Do not try to compare yourself with other people. One thing with cybersecurity and even GRC in particular, it's not like a sprint, it's a marathon, it's one step at a time, right? And also there's still room for you to learn on your job. Like you cannot know everything before you go into GRC. There's still room for you to learn on the job. Like for me though, because of my experience of like enterprise GRC, when I got into the technical part, like to say, okay, I want to work on an SDLC team to manage them and ensure that they're carrying out secure development. Because of my enterprise knowledge, I was given the opportunity to say, if you can do GRC somewhere else, you can do GRC on a technical team. So all you have to do is just to understand how the whole life cycle, software development life cycle works and everything. So I was given that opportunity to still learn on the job, and I'm still learning on the job too. So that's one thing I would tell you too, that there's room for you to grow on your job, learn on your job. So you don't have to wait till you know every single thing, but you need to know enough to give you confidence to say, okay, I can do this job. So that's just the takeaway I'll give here.
That's fire. That's fire. And I think that we can end it there. And that's great, great, great information. Just because you're giving me something great to take away, and that you don't have to complicate it. While Nigel is right that it is technical and can get technical very quickly, and sits on the foundation of technology and infrastructure. It's all true. But we can simplify it as well. We can go in with the mindset that there are a bunch of moving parts, and we can dissect it and understand each part. Maybe find a lane within one of the letters to work in, to be a part of, to push forward. And I would leave it there. So some food for thought to think about and consider as you're looking at these different roles and opportunities out there. Thank you, Ms. Brown. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great rest of your afternoon, night, evening, folks. And thank you all for coming in and participating. And we will do this again. We'll see you later.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.